And the thing about Garth is that he is very humble. He doesn't want any of this. We had to convince him to do this film. We had to convince him to put his name on a building. And so this isn't really, he doesn't want this to be about him. It's about Rochester University and the work that he's done there and the work that we do as an institution. So.
Hey, welcome to the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast on the B Podcast Network. This is a show dedicated to helping higher ed marketers tell better stories, create better content, and enroll more students. And my name is John Azzoni. I'm the founder at Unveiled, a video production company working specifically with college marketing teams on automating their student and alumni success stories through a subscription approach. And you can learn more at unveiled.tv. That's spelled UNVEILD. Or if you want to chat directly with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, last name spelled AZONI, or find my contact info on the contact page of our website. Also, if you want to create deeper emotional impact with your institution's storytelling and content creation efforts, consider joining my newsletter. Every week I send out a dose of insights and inspiration, including case studies and best practices from other institutions, tips for creating content that resonates and inspires action, and that week's podcast episode, and more. So the link to sign up is in the show notes of this episode, or if you catch any of the excerpts that I post on LinkedIn from this podcast, there will be a link in any of those posts. My guest today is Jen Porter. Jen and I have been friends for a few years now, so it was a joy to have her on the show, as I knew it would be. She's the director of Alumni Relations at Rochester University. RU is a small liberal arts college here in Southeast Michigan, where I'm recording this episode from. They're a faith-based school, and over half the student population is in athletics, so big sports influence over there. And RU did something really cool that I personally haven't seen before in the higher ed space. They produced a full-on documentary. Their former basketball coach, Garth Pleasant, just embodies the spirit of RU, and his story is really, really cool. Not only is he the winningest college basketball coach in Michigan, but he did all that with like no budget, like rags to riches, playing basketball in a rundown court that's not even regulation size. There's water leaking in when it rains. Floorboards are warping. But then to not only take this RU basketball team to the top of the charts, whatever you call it, but what's more than that is to have made such an incredible and far-reaching impact on so many lives that Garth did. And that's what this documentary is about. So we're going to talk about Garth's story. We're going to take you behind the scenes of the production of this documentary. And if you're the person on your team that hires the video vendor and babysits the project and coordinates everything, that is Jen. So she'll share some of the parts that overwhelmed her a bit in the process. Maybe you can relate, but it was all worth it. And I kid you not, we had another tornado warning, heavy rain and wind blowing through our area, and yet another power outage in the middle of the episode. This time it was Jen's power, so that's between her and God. Don't drag me into this. All right, so here's my conversation with Jen Porter. All right, Jen Porter, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, John.
We made it. We made it here to the podcast.
Yes.
It's been a roller coaster trying to get you on this podcast.
It sure has. It's been a lot of rescheduling.
Yeah, a lot of rescheduling. But we're here. We did it. I know you. You and I are friends because we worked together for the last several years on video projects through a previous production company that I used to work for. And so I know you've done a lot of student success stories, alumni stories, for capital campaign events and things like that. But we're here today to talk about Coach. This is a long form. Well, in the grand scheme of like short marketing videos, it's long. It's a long form documentary. I think it's like 20 minutes.
It's 40 minutes.
Is it 40 minutes?
Yeah, so it is actually 36.48 seconds without the additional ask that we added at the end. But yeah, it was originally scheduled to be a 20-minute documentary, but it has ended up to be this 40-minute film. That's
all right.
Yes.
And I watched it on the train to Chicago, and I will say, Amtrak, if you can like work on your Wi-Fi, That would be better. I watched it very stutteryly. I had to like kind of rewatch parts when I got back to the actual hotel room, which
Yeah.
then they charged me at the hotel room for Wi-Fi. I'm like, come on, who?
Oh, come
This is
on.
2023. Wi-Fi should just be like water, you know.
Yes, you get that for free. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a great movie, and you guys have been doing some cool stuff with it. But tell us about what the premise is, who the coach is.
Yes.
What's this movie about?
So, Garth Pleasant and the Pleasant family have influenced Rochester University really since the beginning. Garth's wife, Pat, her father was one of our first presidents of our university. Garth and Pat met at Rochester University. His kids attended. His son, now, Clint, is now our head men's basketball coach. And so they have a long history with Rochester University. And so Garth really, he coached for more than 40 years at RU. He's preached, he's taught, he's, been around for a long time. And so Coach, Make the Big Time Where You're At, really explores his story. And we include some really cool interviews with Oakland University head men's basketball coach, Coach Kampe. We also have interviews from our alumnus and former basketball player, John Horst, who's now the Milwaukee Bucks general manager. And then we also have a lot of alums and community members that make an appearance in this film. Really, this film it's Garth's story, but it's about the story of Rochester University and how everyone has a story. Everyone can make a positive impact on their work, on their community, and this is just one of our stories that we are sharing really through a donor that came to us and said, we want to fund this project. And so that's Coach kind of boiled down into what it is. It's one story.
And Garth is like he's like the winningest coach in
Yes.
planet
And
Earth.
yeah, so he has over 720 wins. He holds multiple national championships. He's one of the winningest coaches in Michigan. He has a long career, 40 plus years. He started his own basketball camp on the campus of Rochester University that has now started with 18 kids, and now we're over 2,500 kids every summer that come to campus. And a lot of people know Garth and Rochester University and the Pleasant family because of that camp. And really, it's been an outreach to our community. And he did all of this without a facility. We didn't have an arena on our campus until 2016. And that arena now is named after him because of generous donor support that said, no, we want Garth's name on that. And the thing about Garth is that he is very humble. He doesn't want any of this. We had to convince him to do this film. We had to convince him to put his name on a building. And so this isn't really, he doesn't want this to be about him. It's about Rochester University and the work that he's done there and the work that we do as an institution. So, yeah.
I remember when we were in talks because I worked a little bit on the creative for this in the very beginning stages, but it was something like the funder for the Garth Pleasant Arena was going to pull the funding if they didn't name it Garth Pleasant Arena.
Yes. So Bill Fox from Fox Automotive, Garth impacted his life personally. He married him and his wife. Bill has now passed on, but his family is still involved. But he said, Garth, unless you let me put your name on the building and you office there, I'm not providing this $1 million gift. And so Garth said, yes, okay, I guess. If that's what it's going to take, sure, we'll do that.
That's cool. And so this is what I like about it. Yeah, like you mentioned, it's kind of like that really I was kind of like rags to riches sort of thing, created something incredible out of almost like absolutely nothing. Like you see in the film, like the old gym that they were in, and I can't remember if it's like
Yeah.
water leaking or like floorboards were warped or something like
Oh
that.
yeah. I mean, the old gym wasn't regulation size. The hoops, the rims are soft. There's no room for, like, if you run hard, you're gonna run into a concrete wall. There's water leaking in the winter. It's hot, or it's super hot in the summer. It's super cold in the winter. It is, this like beloved treasure to those who played in it, but anyone else would be like, no, that is not that is not a place for collegiate athletics. And how do you do what you do there? And but for him, it's not about that. It's about the guys and the students that he impacted. He's done more weddings than anybody I know. He's facilitated funerals for people he never knew, but they know him. And it's just this lasting legacy of someone who we get to still learn from today.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the way that it kind of helps RU is, I mean, as a faith-based school, when you watch this film, you really get a sense for Garth's faith and
Yes.
the faith that he wanted to see in the men that were becoming on the team.
Yeah.
And really that was his focus. Like he's like, what was it? It was a great quote. Like, I don't care. Like, I won't know I'm successful, by how many wins, but what you boys to become or something like that.
Yes. Like the husbands and fathers that you become will be, what is the lasting legacy? We don't care about championships. We don't care about wins. We care about who you are as a person, and that you're living for God, that your story is one that is impactful for your future and for your family and for the community around you, wherever you may go in life. I think Garth does tell that story of right after a championship game, one of the players came and said, "Coach, are you happy?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm happy, but this is what's going to really make me feel like we've accomplished something, is when you leave here, when you leave Rochester University, what kind of husband and father are you? Or a person of society, because not everybody gets married and have kids, but
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that. And so let's talk about how you rolled this out. So and then
yeah.
I want to backtrack to talk about like behind the scenes, how production, happened, how your team kind of like managed the production,
Yeah.
with the video vendor and that kind of thing. So, but like talk about, because you guys have rolled this out in like theaters.
Yes. Yeah. So this project has been a lot of work. I think when we first all kind of sat down, we were so excited to do this video, but no one other than the video team that we were working with, you were there, really knew kind of what it would take to pull this off. My job is a fundraiser. I'm not a marketing person by trade. Everything I've learned I've learned on the job, and I've done it. But so initial showing, we hosted a red carpet event at a local upscale movie theater. And I think that would have been successful if we did that alone as a standalone event, but we ended up partnering that with a quarterly board meeting, our annual fundraising dinner during that weekend. And so we really made like this weekend out of it, that celebrated Rochester University and who we are. We had a red carpet premiere, basically. Like I like to call it our world premiere. That we did that night, and it really felt fun. And we're in the big EMAX screen, and we had 300 people that filled this theater. And then after that, we were at capacity. So from there, we scheduled a couple showings in major cities where we had high alumni concentration. And so we were able to take it on the road. And each one of these showings have also partnered with a Q&A panel. So to talk about the behind the scenes, or to ask Garth the questions that maybe people have wanted to ask him for years, or other people. We've featured Coach Kampe on that panel. We've featured Clint, his son, now part of our team at Rochester University. We featured other alums on those panels. So not only do people get to see the film, but they get to hear more about the story. So from those, this summer, early fall, we're doing some local events. We've coupled a few of them on campus with Garth's basketball camp, Langhorne Center basketball camp. We've also done stuff we also have scheduled showings at local venues like our public library, our Older Persons Commission. We're having another showing next week, actually, at the theater again, to kind of do that for those that weren't able to attend. And so roughly that'll get us through summer/fall. The first 6 months, we're doing strategic live showings. Then we're going to host the video on our newly redesigned school website. And we're going to use that as an opportunity to capture information from people who are interested in viewing the film. We hope to utilize that as lead generation purposes for us, more donor engagement, more alumni engagement. And then lastly, this plan is ever changing for us. Like as we kind of think through, okay, what do we want out of this film and out of this documentary? But
it should be evolving. I feel like it's a very new thing, and I feel like that's just something you kind of you put out there with some semblance of a plan, but then it just evolves, and then you're like, this would be a great idea too, and that's all awesome.
Yes, 100%. And so right now, kind of our last plan is to stream that on local public television. And then hopefully one day, we'll stream that on national streaming sites and apply for some documentary awards. And, my goal is to go worldwide. We want to use this as a promotional strategy to tell the story of Rochester University, the type of people who lead our community, the impact we have on our surrounding community, our region, but also the impact of our students and what Rochester University has played a role in our student lives, in our alumni lives. And we really hope to use this to get people's attention and interest. We've launched a new campaign for a new athletic fields to finish out that athletic complex. Over half of our student population are student athletes. And so we want to not just be able to play in our arena, in the Garth Pleasant arena, we want to bring our other athletes home. And so this for us is brand awareness. It's helping us with a capital campaign. It's helping us tell the story of Rochester University to people who might not know that story. So it's ever evolving really on what we're going to do next. Kind of like, what crazy idea do we think up?
That's great. So just so people have a sense in their head, can listeners of this podcast watch the film right now, or do they have to
Yes, so listeners can watch the film at one of our live showings. So those are all online. People can register to come and sit down and watch the film with us. Eventually, probably towards the winter months, we're going to put that on our website. And we're going to put that behind a little lead generation form where we're gathering people's information. And we'll do that for a while, and then they'll be able to stream it on public television, at least locally here in the Rochester area. We have some talks for a little bit more regional public television as well, but those aren't solidified at this time. So eventually you'll be able to stream it in your own home. Right now, you got to come watch it with us.
All right, come to Michigan. It's worth it.
Yes, it's come to Michigan.
Yeah, so just to put a pin in that, it is a very good film. It is very, put a note on your calendar for winter to go to rochesteru.edu/coach. It's very much worth the watch. I have an emotional connection to it because, my good friends created it. And I remember when we were... So the production company is Tell Studios. I was a creative director there for, I worked there for over 10 years, was creative director for maybe 8 of those years. And I remember, Ryan, the founder of the company, and always wanting to do this. And we had little spurts of maybe we'll just create a trailer or something and then do a Kickstarter and see if we can raise funding or something like that. So it's just, I've heard about Garth for years.
Yes.
And it's funny when I decided to leave and start Unveiled, it was like, all right, we're doing this. And
Yeah.
so I used to lead the storytelling workshops at Tell. And so my small part in Coach was leading us through a workshop, which I have a funny story to tell our listeners.
Yes.
Which so it was transitioning from summer to fall to winter, is getting colder out, and once in a while I get bloody noses, and especially when it goes from warm to cold. I just have my whole life, and so I got your whole team at the studio, and we all eat lunch, and we're all chumming it up, and we're like, all right, we got to get going here. So we all go into the conference room, and my nose starts bleeding, and and I didn't want to delay anymore because we were like running out of time. So
Yeah.
I like was sitting there leading us through this workshop, pinching my nose.
I think that I remember correctly, there was a tissue hanging out of your nose, like wrapped up in there.
Yeah, tissue. I mean, I was like, it was so much like, okay, how are we gonna get through this? Eventually, I excused myself to just go take care of it, but
Yeah.
it's just funny. It's a funny. Imagine like someone that's like leading a meeting with the client's leadership, and just sitting there like. Nursing a bloody nose and also being like, okay, so tell me the pillars of this story.
It was very funny. But honestly, like, because we know each other, we've done work, together previously. I was like, oh, it's fine, whatever, we're friends. But there are other people around this table that you did not know, and they did not know you. And so that is what gets me. Like, it's so funny to me that, nobody said anything. It was completely fine. But
Yeah.
and you were seamless. You like pulled off the whole launch, meeting, and it was great. But yeah, it was
Yeah,
funny.
we did it. We got there. Quick break here to tell you another story. If you're a higher ed marketer with a stake in enrollment numbers, and maybe right now you're thinking, oh, the enrollment cliff, enrollment's down, or it's stayed the same, what do we do differently? Then this story is for you. Walsh College is a really cool business school here in the Detroit area, and I sat down with their marketing director, Jay Kruger. You may remember him from episode 8 of the podcast. I sat down with him to learn more about how Walsh was able to increase their enrollment by over 40% for the summer semester with no sign of slowing down. And they did it all by not hiring Unveiled for an annual storytelling subscription. But I'll let Jay tell you about why he turned us down for the subscription. But this is a happy story, though, so let's spice it up. We'll dropping a beat in 3, 2, 1. There it is. All right, we've set the tone. Here's Jay.
When we look at the news and everybody is reporting these downward trends in enrollment, we are very much the opposite. We're already up over 40%, and we're already looking at some historic numbers that haven't been seen. So in early 22, we had a big leadership change across almost all departments. I mean, the entire feel of the college changed at the same time. Because of the leadership changes that took place around the building, the direction of the college started to become more clear. Once we had that real clarity of who we are as Walsh College, the content creation of everything else became much easier to do. And the commercial ended up being the exciting piece that we could tie everybody into in all departments and get everybody excited about what was to come.
But what would the story be without a little conflict, right? If you have a small marketing team, I think you'll be able to relate to what Jay's about to say here.
So we did a commercial in 2018, and then we didn't do one again until 2022. And in that time, we had exhausted every asset from all of it. We were really using a lot of stock image, a lot of things that were just very non-authentic. So the engagement on everything was low. The numbers in our enrollment was going right down with it. When John and I first talked, he was talking about this subscription base that he had, which I thought was really cool. It's a really unique idea to be able to make sure you have content ongoing. I knew it wasn't in the budget for us, so we decided to do a one-off. So what we did was we tacked on one commercial and 2 student / alumni interviews. When we took the B-roll from all sides. So we took the B-roll from the commercial day, we took the B-roll from the student day. I've now gotten a year's worth of content. And really it's gonna stretch even further because I still have stuff I haven't even used, and I've been making commercials regularly. On top of the commercial and the student videos, I was actually able to make multiple other commercials. So I started off that I took the script from that, plus the video, kind of morphed it around a little bit, and I made a 60, a 30, and a 15-second audio commercial that kind of told the same story that we were trying to do. That went into a podcasting advertising. We did that for about 6 months. I then took the video and turned it into another 60, 30, and 15-second commercial just using the B-roll and a new script. So it didn't take much in the way of manipulation of that video to add on another commercial and another and another and another. Because the material was still there, I still have, even to this day, I'm 6 commercials deep with that same stuff, and I still have material in the B-roll that I still haven't used. So what the important part of this is to take everything that we had and say, how do we, within our budget, expand this to cover the next 3 to 5 years? And we were able to do it fairly easily because of the amount of things that we were able to do inside of a 2-day shoot. So over the last year, we've gone up in enrollment. Our enrollment numbers are in numbers that we haven't seen in over a decade. We have an increase in all levels. We have a higher interest. We're adding new programs. We just added 7 more undergraduate degrees. We're seeing an increased traffic flow into the website. We're seeing alumni coming back and thanking us for the directions that we're going. I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of the efforts that we're doing and a lot of the things that are taking place. But none of that happens without the excitement that comes from getting the name out there and getting people to understand that Walsh is changing. And we're changing into a direction that's exciting for not only our future students, but our existing students and our alumni as well.
Jay Kruger, ladies and gentlemen. Great team they have over there at Walsh. Tara Weiner also on the team. And if you heard the episode with Bart Kaler, then you will have heard her voice talking about how she reuses video content as still images, which I thought is just a cool thing that people don't really think about very often. So anyway, that's all I wanted to tell you. Just cool news from Walsh College. All right, back to the episode. So yeah, we did the workshop, and what that resulted in was like a blueprint of basically like a pitch deck of like, here's how we think we should approach this. And it actually was the reason why I watched Won't You Be My Neighbor, the Mr. Rogers film. And I was like, I think I posted on social on LinkedIn or something, where I'm like, because I was like off on my own, like working from home with my own business, and I was just like sitting by the fire. We have a little wood burning stove in our house, and I'm like, I can't believe I get to watch Mr. Rogers movie for 2 hours and call this work.
Yes.
So yeah, I watched that film, and then we just kind of like parlayed that into just like, let's draw some inspiration from another notable figure who has had an incredible impact, and especially a faith-based impact on young people. So anyway, we did the blueprint, and then that was where I dropped off. And then the next thing I saw was I know you guys were filming it and stuff. So tell us about like tell us about filming it. What were some challenges? What were some things that went right? What were some things that were hard to coordinate? Because I know that part of our listeners are the people that coordinate the video team. And I hear from a lot of you listeners that like, that's the worst part about managing video projects, is having to coordinate things. And you guys had a lot of interviews in this film, and I imagine a ton of coordinating and a lot of B-roll scenes. Just tell us about that.
I have never made a documentary before. We've made some short, student testimonial stories, videos like that. I'm a fundraiser. I'm not a marketer, but thankfully we had great partners. Tell Studios, you mentioned already, those are 2 of our alums that we're so proud of, Ryan Coral and Grant McClure, and we were blessed to work with them and you during that, during the initial stages, but really, having them was such a help because we're a small team. We're not a big shop. We don't have a video team on campus. Our Marcom team is 2 people. My development team we're now up to 4, which is really exciting. Yeah. So I think, from the beginning, the sit down, I think that was great where we thought about all these ideas and how we can utilize this film. But then you have to whittle down, okay, who are you going to interview? Because we did interview a lot of people, but we still had this massive list of people that we wanted to include. So then crafting those questions for each person, just kind of talking through how we did this. And then that scheduling starts, right? So we were all, super excited for this, but at the end of the day, this was kind of like a extra bonus project for us. This wasn't our daily work that we were doing. I still had money that needed to be raised, and we needed to figure out scheduling and all these moving parts with interviews across the nation, really, and then our major talent, Garth, is snowbirding in Florida half the year too. So like we're figuring out all of these logistics. And then really in the home stretch, when you think you're like done, there's so many little things to make the project come to fruition of, I didn't have to do this, but music and graphics and all of the like logistics, the releases that need to be signed by our talent and, all the little things that you don't think of when you do a project of this size, especially when this isn't your full-time job or, something that you've ever done before. So, I think like you get this high at the end of, oh, we're in the home stretch. Then you have all these little things that almost take more time than recording and filming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we spent countless hours in revisions. I've probably watched this film 200 times I can quote every line that you just don't think about of, working in this kind of project. But then the video project is done and, we talked about this a little bit about how we rolled this out, but you really have to plan out a rollout plan. And be open to changing that plan and strategically thinking, okay, how are we going to utilize this film or this video? Because we don't want to sit it on a shelf after spending that money, using our donor funds to do that, using the time that we had to do it. And so you think about all those strategic partnerships that you want to also facilitate, so that your work is seen and it's not just like, great, we did this project, we're done. So I think all of those challenges where, again, like that's not your main focus. That wasn't my main focus as a director of development, but those created strategic opportunities, and still is creating strategic opportunities for us to leverage this film into more than just a documentary. So it's allowed us to meet people and talk to people and open up partnerships that we didn't know we could have. And it's been great. It's just all those little things kind of pile up. So that's the biggest challenge. Time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's cool because, for people listening that I am almost positive you probably have someone or multiple people, figures at your institution who maybe not have like a dramatic story like Garth, like the most winningest basketball coach in college, Michigan college, whatever, but have made a big impact on students' lives. And I think you don't have to take it to this level of production. But I just thought this was interesting, a way of capitalizing on one of those stories, because you could have just done a little video. It's like, here's Garth, here's some, he did this, rah rah, are you, and called it good. But to have a story that everyone talks about at your school, like this is like everybody knows Garth,
Yes.
and everyone knows the Garth story that comes through RU's doors. And to take that and say, we're going to invest some real money into this, because it wasn't cheap, right?
No, I mean, we would have never done this without a donor. we talked about video for a long time, and we really weren't in the video land until about 5 years ago when we were making our name change from Rochester College to Rochester University. We've dabbled here and there over the past 60 plus years, but until we did our name change, we really didn't have video assets. We didn't have anything. We didn't have B-roll footage. We didn't have these stories in a video format. But then COVID hit, and we transitioned one of our major fundraising events to a live stream virtual event, and where we used to have a student get up and talk to people in front of this dinner, we did some pre-recording short videos, and those went over really well, and we got great feedback from that. And honestly, we were able to use that in so many different ways, social, email, website. We use the B-roll for that for other things around the institution, but we've never done a project of this scope. And it's opened up this whole new world for us of what's possible from a video standpoint, but what's possible from a partnership standpoint, a donor perspective, because we wouldn't have had the funding. We would have never done this project without donor funding. And I'm so glad that we did. And, now we can think creatively in other ways that we can engage our community, really. And I think, you talked about Garth's story and how everybody has a story, in terms of higher education. There's always going to be that special professor or a student with, a really compelling story, or, if your institution is really invested in community, then you want to be able to share that. But sometimes, your first step in doing all of that is not to think video. Sometimes that first step has to be getting people to tell you those stories. Like Garth's story has been shared for 40 plus years. But when we're thinking about other video, a lot of times we're trying to go find that. You had a podcast, you had somebody on, and I'm not going to remember their name, but they talked about the creating the guide, like the
Seth Odell from Kanahoma.
Yes. And I was like, we can do that. We can do that internally on a smaller scale. But I think the hardest part is finding those stories and reaching out and, so that then you can market them and you can communicate those. And you're not just touting your stats or what your university offers, but I think storytelling is really a game changer in sharing mission and getting people invested. They're invested in your cause, whether that be financially or through volunteerism or making a referral or coming to your institution. And that's not just for higher ed, that's for any business. And so this really has opened our eyes to all the possibilities and kind of given us the shot in the arm that we needed. For me as a fundraiser, a lot of times I'm so focused on the dollars or metrics or, okay, as a small school, we need to hit our annual fund numbers so that we can provide, millions of dollars in scholarships, which is all worthy causes. But if we can tell a story that's actually impactful, that's way more important and way more beneficial for us as an institution, personally, professionally. It's way better.
I imagine too, like on a return on investment scale, this might be one of those things where it's very qualitative or whatever, where it's like, maybe you're seeing dollars come in, but maybe can't necessarily track that to this film. But the sentiment in the community and like what this film means to the school, to have this story told and documented, and as a tool for outreach is a huge return on investment. I mean, I just think like, we always talk about like people talk about measuring, results and data and stuff like that. But also it's like, what's the ROI of a hammer? Like you can't really measure that, but it's such a useful tool that you might not be able to do your job without.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one way to think about video is just what's the value of having an incredibly useful tool, and what's the value of your confidence level and your team's confidence level in that tool, as you're approaching big name donors, just feeling like yes, this is accurately told, and I think this is the right kind of messaging, and but in that sense, have you, like, are you guys measuring anything?
Oh yeah. I'm just a measurer by nature. And so, I'm gonna measure, okay, we've done some of these events. What is the actual cost for the event? We've put some sponsorships around, especially these bigger showings at movie theaters and our regional events that we've done. We did one in Nashville, and we have some great sponsors that have come out to help us cover the costs, because there are costs associated with having events, whether they be big or small, and using in-kind gifts to, do that as well. But we're always measuring, okay, this is how much, we kind of spent to do the film. Majority of it was donor covered, but as we are rolling it out, there's actual real costs that we've been able to I guess, squash with sponsorship dollars, and creating those partnerships and using this tool to, like, get people excited, engaged, and learn more about us. And then this event that we're rolling out, kind of our second movie theater showing, we have some match gifts for that, for around our capital campaign. And so we are always tracking kind of the return on investment, but there is this unmeasurable, magic that you kind of have to just say, okay, we're leaning into this and we're trusting the process when it comes to having this video and showing it and what that means for us as an institution, because it can't always be about dollars. It has to be about sharing the story. And, really putting this video together has been a reminder of the power in relationships for us, and the power in everybody has a story, and sharing that, and how we can all collaborate together for a greater good, that's beyond us or Garth or even the institution. So yes and no.
And what I think I wanted to encourage listeners with too is it doesn't have to be a big story, because I think in storytelling it's helpful to think about specific moments, and so maybe you have a professor that's great, but they're not the winningest whatever, won a bazillion awards, that kind of story. But maybe they had this quiet moment with a student where they really helped that student get a job, or meet that student in a trying time in life, with the right words at the right time. I mean, those are stories too. So and you can't know those without building a story pipeline of some sort. Like you have to. I mean, so much of the work of storytelling is actually coming up with a system, where you are constantly on the lookout for stories. And I don't think enough schools do that. Like I think about it in terms of, like, I'm a painter, and I saw this video one time where the guy was, like, in his studio, and he's like, some days I just come to my studio and I just sweep the floors. He's like, 'cause that's making art. Like, sometimes making art is just sweeping the floors, and, like, cleaning up the area or whatever. And so I think, like, a lot of times storytelling is just building systems, and going out into the community and talking to people. It's not always, like, the hands-on part of, like, actually recording the story or writing the story and asking the questions and stuff like that. So I always am, like, shouting from the rooftops, y'all need to get a story pipeline of some sort.
Yes, 100%. And I think we've learned that, we've really learned that over the past few years of, okay, we want to tell more stories, not just through video. We're doing these warrior spotlights, or what we're calling them, the written that we're using on our website and in social. But to do that, honestly, it's the best part of my job when I get to go talk to someone and I get to sit down face to face with someone or go to a student event and just witness what's happening. And it really gets you outside of your day to day, and it's much more impactful and strategic, but having those systems in place, and then having those systems in place for other people to share their story. And we don't have this down to a science by any means. We're still trying to figure it out ourselves, but using those faculty that are in the classroom to share the stories, using students, using alums to be able to say, here's a platform, please share with us, whatever it might be. You had a baby, great, let's celebrate that. You got a new job, wonderful. We wanna showcase that. So whatever it might be, big or small, I think sharing those stories are important, and having that pipeline set up is something that will have lasting effects for years.
Yeah. And I think I think a lot of schools that I've witnessed kind of approach finding stories as like a one-time event. Like, here, we're going to do this video. Now it's time to go find stories. And what happens is they ask department heads and they ask professors and stuff. And those people don't know what you need. What they're going to assume is that you want someone that's going to say nice things about the school, which is true, but you had a Lauren Keene. I released that episode yesterday, and but she had a great thing to say about having like an internal road show. She called it, like, marketing communications has to go on the road, get out of the office, talk to professors, talk to department heads, talk to mentors or mentee, whatever, people that are in the mix with students, and talk about what is it that you're actually trying to do, and what makes a good story, what to be on the lookout for, and why you need that, how you're using it, how it's going to impact people. And so that's I think that's really key. The other thing that I wanted to touch on too was, as I've seen, because I've been part in some way of Rochester University videos for a few years, and I've seen like the B-roll library that you guys have built, which is pretty extensive, and I wouldn't say that you guys have had like a massive investment in lots of quantities of videos. Like, we haven't done like 20 stories, but even just like we've done a handful of them over the years, and just from those plus this coach documentary, I mean, I got I'm about to work with you guys on another project, and I had Grant McClure, who was the director and the editor of Coach. I paid him to round up the whole B-roll library for me. I'm still waiting on this hard drive, Grant.
Yeah. I'm gonna need a copy of that too, so I paid him to do that.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's terabytes of footage, and that's why it's taking him so long. It's because there's so much footage in different places for you guys. But that is a huge value of investing even a small amount in video. You have to think about it not as just what's the one video that I'm going to get, but how are we going to, what's the potential of repurposing this, assuming you're working with a production company that's going to give you the footage.
Right. Yes, so that's important, because we are still learning. There's all this B-roll footage out there. I don't claim to be an expert in that, because I think there's so much that is untapped in what we've done and what we can do. Like you said, we're going to work on this next project to tell kind of our institutional story with a limited budget. And we can do that because we have this B-roll footage. I don't think that probably would have been possible without that. Some way it would be, but like, really, this project started as a bigger project, and it's kind of like whittled its way down because of finances, and we're able to do that because we've invested in video in other ways.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't think about it that way. That like, we started out with a larger budget and a larger vision, because for this, what you guys are calling an institutional saga, kind of like your whole history and brand story and things like that. And then there was some pivoting with the budget, and the budget got whittled way down. And literally, like, I had to send you guys a proposal, and it was like, the only way we can do this is to, is to rely almost entirely on your B-roll library, because we won't have the budget to like go film a bunch of new B-roll. So that allowed you guys to what will be, a really cool piece that otherwise probably would have just been canned,
Oh yeah, 100%. It would have like died on the vine, and it would have been a lost opportunity for us. I think we're still going to make this something great. We're going to make it into a project that we can be really proud of. And it's something that we didn't plan for, but it's working out. Like this little blessing of having this B-roll that I think it'll be great for us long term. And it's so untapped. Like, that's like the thing that I keep coming back to, is that we have all this footage that we haven't even started to utilize. And so from Coach, from all these other videos that we haven't invested a lot. We've invested, a couple hundred, not even $100,000 probably in video. And some people, that's like a small portion of their video budget for the year. We're talking like over 5 years here. So it's a small investment, but it's so worth it to tell the story.
That's great. I love it. Okay, this was great. Super great having you on. So where can people connect with you at if they have questions about Coach or your job, whatever?
Yeah, so you can always check out our website, which is rochesteru.edu. Specifically for Coach, it's rochesteru.edu/coach, or you can email me, find all my contact information there. jporter1@rochesteru.edu. I don't know if you want me to do that.
Is there a J Porter 2?
No, but there is a J Porter. Yes, so there was a J Porter. Some people, it's so funny, we just add numbers, some people have 4, some people have 7 at the end of their name, at the end of their email. So jporter1@rochesteru.edu, or, honestly, a quick Google search, you'll find all my contact information.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much for listening. I want to tell you a little bit about what's coming up on the podcast. We got a few episodes that are pretty cool. So number 1, and I don't know what order these are in. Sometimes I just kind of follow my heart, but we've got 3 in the can. 1 is with Andrew Castle from Middlebury College. He's come back on the podcast to talk about Mastodon, Web3, the Fediverse, the Metaverse, all the verses, and it's just a cool sort of it's a cool thing to wrap your head around if you can kind of understand Mastodon and how that works and how it could benefit your institution. Also, we've got Darren Rubinick from University of Central Missouri, and we're talking about all these social media platforms that are running about here, the overwhelm that comes with trying to figure out which to focus on, which ones you should be on, which ones you can ignore. So we're gonna talk about all that kind of stuff, and then we've got Andy Fuller, who is the executive director of branded content at University of Notre Dame. We are talking with him about narrative ownership, owning the stories that exist within your institution's history or current times, owning them and telling those stories before other people tell them. So yeah, it was a fun conversation with Andy. And then let's see, 3 things I want to give you before you go. Number 1, if you are interested in our subscriptions, you can download our pricing guide at pricing.unveiled.tv. If you're interested in a one-off or working with me on video content of some sort, reach out to me through our website or reach out to me through LinkedIn, whatever's easiest for you. Number 2, sign up for my weekly newsletter for insights on creating deeper emotional impact with your institution's storytelling and content creation efforts. And number 3, leave a review for this podcast. It helps me out a ton. Thanks a lot. My name's John Azzoni. Go connect with me on LinkedIn. And in the meantime, we'll catch you on the next episode of the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast. Thanks.